Thank you for joining us in our last episode, where we're actually speaking to a goat breeder and a goat trainer, Sifiso Agbetorwoka, who actually told us about, all the ins and outs of actually breeding goats, and in particularly how to actually commercialize a goat breeding.
My name is Sifiso Agbetorwoka. I'm a farmer, a goat breeder. I also offer training and consultancy services around goat breeding. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our daily routine with the goats. So the first thing we do in the morning is to clean the pens, because cleanliness is very, very important for a number of reasons. The floors might be wet. Goats don't like being on wet surfaces. And they also suffer terribly from a condition known as foot rot. So it's important to keep your pens absolutely clean. It's also is a way of preventing worms getting into the feed, because you can get worms from droppings. And if you don't remove droppings and feed falls on those droppings, the goats eat them. They get worms. So that's what we do. First and foremost, cleaning, watering, and feeding. So feeding comes in a number of ways. Our kids, they are penned. I know these are not kids. We kept these in here especially for the program. But otherwise, by this time, they may be coming back. They go out to the veld. The big goats are let out into the veld. Then they come back in the afternoon. They usually have something. We supplement them because it's the winter and we want to maintain their body condition. So we'll give them dry lucerne in the evenings. They have their water. They should have a salt block somewhere. I don't know whether you can see it, but they also have a salt lick. They should have a salt lick somewhere. And this is the drinking water. And that's the time that the mothers feed their babies as well. The little ones, we keep them in until after weaning. They don't go out. And the main reason here, predators. We have a problem of predators. Jackals. Yeah, we have a problem of jackals, baboons. We don't even know what baboons do, but we're terrified of baboons and the little ones. So we keep them in, and they also eat. We introduce creep feed, which is basically lucerne pellets at day 10. But I know some farmers do it at a much later date. But I was trained to do it at 10 days. That's what I do. And so far, it works for us at Bulembe to introduce creep feeding at day 10. So that's what we do. When the mothers are out, the kids always have to have something to eat. And we also introduce hay to them.
What does it take to produce a good quality goat meat,
Nutrition. Making sure your goats are fed. Well, when I say nutrition, it doesn't have to be something out of a packet. But even your own trees, as long as it's got good fat cover, like even a cow, isn't it? A cow that tastes good is a cow that has got good fat cover. And I think with my experience now, I find this is what happens with goats. I find a well-fed goat does not have that very strong smell. Although for some people that's desirable, because if a goat doesn't smell, they don't feel as if they've eaten a goat, because it's not smelly. But the majority of people don't like smelly goats.
So also, when do you actually, slaughter, or even at what time do you actually slaughter your goats?
At Bulembe Farm, we actually slaughter and start selling our goats for meat at quite a young and tender age. When I say tender, I mean it literally, because the meat is tender. So we tend to sell ours from age 9 to 18 months. Yeah. And most of them are gone before they even reach 18 months, because our customers like our meat. It doesn't smell. It's soft. It's got a sweet taste, if I can put it like that. So it's a combination of age and nutrition as well. So we pay attention to that because we want to build a name for ourselves in good quality goat meat.
Do you enjoy goat meat yourself?
I do. Being married to a West African goat is a staple and they have 1,000 ways of cooking goat. Not just ours ways, just boiled with salt, which is great, by the way. Yeah, we love it. But yes, I like cooking goat meat in different ways.
So what kind of value addition do you even do here at the farm? Do you actually slaughter the goats and or do you even sell cooked goat meat?
No, we haven't gotten to that stage yet because our concern is that we don't have the numbers. So we cannot, it would not be sustainable. If we were to start value addition or selling cooked goat meat and people love it and they want it every day and you're kind of like, I don't have it. I wouldn't want to find myself buying goat meat from a source I do not know, especially if you're going to sell cooked goat meat. Because you can very quickly develop a brand and then you run out of the meat, then you don't know what the next brand is. So it actually requires careful and concerted planning, working with other farmers, working towards the same standards of breeding. I think that's the way to go.
Why is it that it seems there is a poor supply really of goat meat, given that a lot of farmers are actually farming goats? I think Zimbabwe has estimated about 4 million goats. So then,
why do we not find goat meat at OK supermarket every day? I think it's a number of reasons. It's how we market and sell our goats. So we are still kind of caught up in the traditional way that if I want to eat a goat meat today, I have to go somewhere and buy a whole goat, number one. So even if I just wanted just one piece of meat, I have to go and buy a whole one from somewhere. And one is how we are used to doing it. So we need to develop systems of gathering those goats from wherever they are.
So would you say then there's an issue with how goat marketing?
There's an issue with goat marketing. There's an issue with the distribution of the goats, because we know that in Gwanda, Manama, anytime you can go there and bring back 200 goats. So how come those goats are not a Texas meted TM at OK supermarket? You know, so there's that as well. But definitely, if we are thinking there's not enough goats, that's also correct. We're not thinking, we know there's not enough goats. This we judge by the numbers or the requests we get from countries that want to import our goats. As soon as they bring in their request, the tonnage itself, you only go to work it out, and 4 million goats are not going to go very far. So that's why we say there's a shortage of goats. We can't export.
How do we actually market or even the trading of goats? Because I've heard that when you go into goat farming, there's a huge market for goats. Maybe could you talk to us about that?
Yes. I mean, as I've already touched on earlier, one of the indicators is the fact that today you cannot walk into a supermarket and find goat meat, number one. So we should get to a stage whereby goat meat is readily available in any butchery, in any supermarket, just like beef and pork. Go into any supermarket, you'll find pork, you'll find beef. We should be able to find goat. So that's one indicator. Indicator number two, as I've said already, you get a request from Qatar, 40,000 tons per month. You get excited, isn't it? You run around and say, okay, shall we gather enough goats to fulfill 40,000? And then you realize, actually, it's quite hard to do that. It's not impossible, but it's hard. Because then you have to be running around everywhere. So it's also about how we distribute the goats. And where there's this huge supply of goats is how we get them from Gwanda Manama to grills, and then to Qatar. How do we do that without having to run around all over the country gathering goats? So we need to have simplified processes as well. We need to get farmers breeding. And I think that's the most important thing. Not only just breeding, but we need to pay attention to the quality. And this is where things like nutrition training come in, So it's quite wide. It's quite wide. There's no one simple answer. It's looking at the whole process, the whole value chain, and so on.
So you are saying the market is there.
The market is there.
The supply is poor.
The supply is poor. And it's tedious. I mean, only this morning somebody called me and they said they wanted 3 goats for meat. I said I don't have, but I could get them. But at what cost? For me to then start running around, phoning around, finding people who have them. It's not that people around me don't have goats, but it then becomes such a tedious process for very little return for me to start combing my networks.
So then
to supply me with three goats. So it's easy for me to just say to the person, I don't have.
Would you then say that we need to have a sort of what? A marketing agency or a system where farmers can just bring their coins? Because
yeah, we need a system, we need a process. We also need, I don't know how we can get around this, but it's also very expensive to slaughter a goat at the abattoir. $10 for 1 goat is a lot of money. So that also discourages breeders, producers to take their 100 goats. Maybe 100 goats is even better because you are now counting on your volumes. But 10 goats and then $100 goes to slaughter. It's not sustainable for most farmers. For the majority of farmers, very few farmers can run a sustainable business paying those kinds of abattoir slaughter fees.
But the pole slaughter would, does that suffice if farmers can just...
What slaughter?
Slaughtering on the pole.
Oh, yeah, under the tree. It's what we are doing. And so far, yeah.
Well, could that be, improved at all? Or farmers need to actually now invest in proper...
this doesn't even have to be a farmer. It could be any business person. Just sets up an abattoir, sets up an aggregation center, and farmers pay a reasonable fee for slaughter. And it's also about, and that way we can really maximize on the profitability of the goat, because that way we then have a way of even utilizing our skins, because right now we waste a lot of skins. You go in Makaya, there's a skin hanging on a tree, on the roof, even here. If you walk around, you see skins. And you think, oh my goodness, that could be 40 pounds. I'm always showing off my bracelet. And yeah. Right now, our membership is not even 100 for the Goat Breeders Association. But we are working on engaging farmers. Like one of the things that we're planning to do is having a roadshow, especially in those areas where we know there are goats. And the obvious starting point for us is that Kwanda Manama Bay Bridge corridor. Let's get those farmers to be part of the association. Then that way, because we seem to be we are the point of contact for anything related to goats. So this is how we also know how many farmers are there and exactly how many goats are there and where. So starting point, please join the Goat Breeders Association. We want to know where you are.
But then interestingly, would you then say goat farming is a profitable business? Can it be a profitable business?
It is a profitable business if it is run as a business. But oftentimes what happens is that we treat it as a hobby. And that's where it may not appear to be profitable because, number one, we don't even have a plan. When I say we in general, and myself included, that sometimes you can start something, you don't know when to expect to have profits, but somehow you unrealistically expect your profits to happen in year 1. And that's quite difficult. Even with any business, not many businesses are profitable in year 1, year 2, year 3. It can take up to 7 years for most businesses to be really profitable, to be, you think, yes, now I'm really running a sustainable business. It's no different with goats. I always say, when people come to the trainings that, take a long-term view. Yes, understand your expenses, your spending, and your outcomes as well. What do you want to get out of this business? Do you want to start making money in a few months? Then maybe you want to go into the buying and selling side of things. But if you go into breeding, it's more long-term. But it's not just breeding. For example, if you're cross-breeding, obviously it will take you longer than someone who straight off goes into pure breeding. They buy 50 boar females, pure breeds, one buck. They can get their money back or realize some profit in 2 years compared to somebody who's just doing crossbreeding. Because my goats are growing a bit slower than the pure breeders' goats. And obviously the value of a purebred goat is much higher than that of a crossbreed. So we could both start 50-50 each, and at 2 years, well, I'm looking at selling at 2 years if I want to get a decent price. But they can sell from 4 months, $200 for a winner, a boar winner, $200. So those are some of the key differences that we need to understand. So goat breeding, the profitability of goat breeding is not one size fits all. It's not generic. It's specific to the farmer's desired goal, their business model, and their understanding of finances, most importantly.
Yeah, and then what next for you as a breeder? In Bulembe?
You mean me personally?
Yes.
Ah, goodness me. That's a good question, a big question. And without letting the cat out of the bag just yet, it's a bit premature. But the desire for me personally is to go into the dairy goat. This is where I see myself pure breeding, because I truly believe that dairy goats or dual purpose goats, goats that can produce milk and meat, are the best for Africa. They're the best for rural communities, because over the years, my experience is that NGOs, for example, I hope, I'm not speaking out of turn, is that they'll go into rural communities, give them very expensive goats, Kalahari Reds, poor goats, go back after 2 years, and there's no trace of the animal. And one of the commonest reasons for that is that when people are desperate for money, they'll sell that goat. But I believe that if they had something else to sell other than the goat, I think they'll give their venture a chance to grow. They can sell the milk. It sounds a bit oversimplistic, but I truly believe that that's one thing that could help us grow the herd. If, say, people in communal farmers, small-scale farmers, had something else to sell from the goat other than the goat itself.
Yeah. For ordinary farmers, really, we always know, we take for granted that when you need quick cash, you sell your goats, and or you just you need food, you just slaughter a goat. Mm-hmm. But then I'm curious to find out what really are the advantages really of goats. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because we take it for granted. I just want to have a goat, mm-hmm. quick cash, an easy source of food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, all that you are saying, it's true, but it needs to be taken into a business context. It's true if you are not going into business, but I think once you commercialize, let's accept that there's going to be money that will need to be spent, but we don't have to be wasteful. Like I said, yes, the veld out there is great, but goats can be raised on a smaller piece of land. They can be zero grazed. You can grow. If you have 2 hectares, keep a hectare for growing food for your goats. That will cut back on your costs. You can eat that. You can intercrop. You can do all sorts of things, but just learning and understand that is going to cost you something, and we've got to be willing to invest in ourselves. I think that's where the challenge is, that we are not always ready or willing to invest in our knowledge and understanding of the business. We just want somebody to say, yes, it's profitable, but how? It's not as simple as that. It's a very individual story, how goats are going to be profitable for me and how they'll be profitable for you. I'm looking at my goats to be profitable for me. I'm still counting years rather than months or whatever. And I started in 2019, and I'm still growing. I'm still growing the business.